talking about adding the handle to your mug. So this guy right here. So at this point, your pinch pot's done. You've added the coils to extend the body of your form. You've leveled out your rim. You smooth everything out. We have a foot, and now we're ready to create a handle and get it attached. So that's what we'll be talking about in this video. It is kind of hard, not gonna lie to you, but practice. Don't just be happy with the first one that you make and slap it on your mug, because it won't be comfortable and you won't want to use it. So take a decent amount of time and practice this over and over and over again until you get one that you feel like will really look good and is going to be comfortable to hold, and then go to the attachment process. So a handle is, you do want it to be, a certain thickness, or else it's going to be uncomfortable to hold. And we'll talk about spacing later, but right now we're just talking about the width and like how long you need it. So if your handle is too wide, so here's a student example, and there's a lot wrong with this, but we'll just talk about the thickness for now. So this is going to be too wide and it's going to be uncomfortable. Even if you have large hands, the way that this is really wide and flat and has a sharp edge, it's just not going to be comfortable to hold. Not to mention this flower attachment is going to get in the way, but we'll talk about that later. Here's another one that has a really sharp edge on it. So this is going to be really uncomfortable to hold in your hand, and we want to avoid that. So as we go through the process, we'll talk about how do you eliminate that, how do you fix it. It's not like you need a whole lot of this. I keep saying refer to your fist, so it's like half the size of my fist. So once you feel like you've wedged it all up, you're going to start your coiling process. So that isn't going to change. We've talked a lot about how to make a proper coil. So don't forget to release your hand, turn slightly, release your hand, turn slightly. But this time, your coil is not going to be completely even all the way across. We want it thinner at one end and thicker at the other. And so then the next question becomes, well, how thick or thin? And if you want an exact measurement, I would say that the skinny end should be maybe like a ½ inch, and then the fat end could be about an inch, inch and a half. And you can see that this tapered coil is going to be a lot longer than that, and I don't need it to be that long. And if you guys want a measurement, I can tell you. So about 5 inches is about how long you want your carrot pieces to be. So I'm going to cut this off. If you have too much clay, it's okay. Just tear some of it away. Okay, so I'm going to make another one. And I want you guys to make several of these as well. I don't want you to make a single handle and put it on your mug, because it's probably not going to look good. Maybe you got lucky and you have beginner's luck, but that doesn't mean that you understand the technique or the skill. So I want you to make several, and once you run out of clay, if you have one that's good, then you can use it. But if not, I want you to wedge your clay back down, and I want you to start again. You have time, so you might as well utilize it. So now the next step, I'm going to set these aside. So your next step is you need your sponge. And I went ahead and I just put a little bit of water in a bowl, but you can just use your spray bottle. That'll work perfectly fine. But you do want your sponge to be damp. And what I'm going to do is, with my sponge in between my hand and my clay, I'm going to hold the clay with one hand, so the fat part, and then I'm going to take my pointer finger and I'm going to push down, and then I'm going to have my thumb on one side and my middle finger on the other. So it's going to be this position, and what's going to happen is, I'm going to do it without the sponge first. What's going to happen is I'm going to hold here, and my fingers on my thumb and my finger on the side, that's holding the clay in. So that way when I push down with this finger, it doesn't flatten. So this is holding the clay inward. So then it becomes, I'm gonna get this wet. So then it becomes like this fluid motion like this. So you're pushing down and pushing in. So I'm pushing down with my top finger and pushing in with my side fingers, right? But you're gonna put your sponge in between. Make sure you're holding the clay. And you're gonna do, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 passes through the clay. And it should start to thin out for you. Sometimes you have to clean your sponge out. Now be careful because you don't want to get it too thin down here on this end where the coil was already thin. This was thicker because this is going to be where we attached it. But notice that my edge is not really flat and straight like this. And that's because the sponge is helping me kind of smooth this section out. If you do have a really right angle happening, then take your sponge and just kind of work that edge. So I'm going to do the best I can to show you like a side view of what I'm doing. So I'm holding the clay here, and then with this finger, I'm holding the clay inward, right? So this finger is on top, pushing down. My middle finger is on the side, and my thumb's on the side, and these fingers are holding the clay in, right? So then you have this motion happening, but you have your sponge in between your fingers. Now, if you need to, you can do this a couple times without your sponge so you can kind of see the clay moving. So the clay's moving, but we don't want these like sharp angles here. So that's what your sponge is going to eliminate. So make sure your sponge is damp. And I'm going to push down and then pull. And I tend to kind of pick the clay up as I do this because I don't want it getting too flat. And if you kind of pick it up, it kind of eliminates that. And be really careful here when you're applying that pressure. This is already thinner, so this is going to be your attachment point for the handle, so don't apply so much pressure that this is getting paper thin, so be careful. And it takes practice, guys. You're not probably going to get this in the first shot here. And then what happens is you'll have like this really sharp angle here on the bottom because it was laying on the table. So you can see that sharp angle. So we're going to turn the clay and get your fingertips wet with your spray bottle. And then I'm just going to kind of use my thumb. So I'm using this part of my thumb right there. And I'm using like the knuckle part of my finger. And I'm just going to kind of slide that down those edges so it doesn't have an angle. And you really don't want to put it down and use your sponge because you'll mess it up. But you can put it down, and if your angle right here on this part is really, if you have like a really sharp edge, use your sponge. You could even get rid of your sponge and just kind of gently glide your fingers over that section. And then the final thing that you'll do is you'll take your thumb and you're going to just go down straight down the middle. Now notice my hand isn't moving. I'm pulling the clay straight up, okay? And then one last pass with my sponge. And this handle is ready to shape. So I know this handle is too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it at an angle. So I'm just going to use my fork, or you can use a modeling tool. So if you're on campus, you have a modeling tool, you can use this. If you're at home, you can use the handle of your fork. So I'm going to cut this at an angle going away from me, okay? Away, because if you cut it this way, it's going to be at the wrong angle. So cut away from yourself, like so. And if you have your rolling pin, you can use your rolling pin to help you get a shape. So you'll have this on your board, but you'll have your rolling pin with you. You'll take your handle and you'll just lay it over the handle, just like so. And if you have some extra clay, you can kind of put it underneath there like that. However, I like my handles to be a little bit taller, so I don't really use the rolling pin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this clay and I'm just going to kind of pinch it down onto my board. And then I'm going to have that curve, and I'm going to set it just like that. And I'm going to have several of those happening on my project board. So again, it's going to take a little bit of practice, and that's okay. I would rather you have several mess ups and several handles to choose from than one really bad handle. So keep at it, keep practicing, and eventually you'll get it.